Hello again. Today while I was thinking about, actually not really thinking about it, just always got kind of a radar up for ideas, thoughts of the day, right? And so they just kind of jump out. And what came to me today was appreciation. And it was, the reminder came in the form of a presentation I once heard by a guy named Mark Wilms. Here's a guy who I first met in Toastmasters, and who actually did a presentation for us at the Coffee Chat Speakers Forum, CK Speakers Forum, a little over a year ago on creativity. One of the things that he's big on, and well, at least the first speech that I ever heard him do, and a few others since, is this idea of appreciation. And I remember the first time I ever met him, and the first time I ever heard him speak, was at a speech contest. He wasn't in the same club as I, so we met as an area contest of several clubs. And I remember he spoke first, and I was speaking that night, and after he spoke, I go, wow. I was fairly new at the time. Oh man, do I have a lot of work to do. Because he was just so eloquent and just so relaxed. But he had this list of things that he really appreciated. And I remember one of them was the smell of freshly fallen rain. And I go, wow, that's so perceptive, you know. And another thing that reminded me was another Toastmaster that I had gotten to know through another friend of mine. He's a really interesting guy. He plays the Japanese taiko drums. And he actually has a drum club that he's formed. Really cool. I've heard him play them once. He's got different sizes. But he did a speech, and he's a really good speaker. He did a speech where not until the end did I realize that he was actually playing the part of a dog in his speech. And he talked about life hacking, something he called life hacking, which was just being able to sense life to the fullest. And the way he talked about how he, in the form of a dog, but like I say, it wasn't until the end that he howled, and we realized, the listeners, that he was talking about a dog. But he went through the senses, all the different senses that we sentient creatures have, right? And how he just so appreciated, he lived life through the senses, and very much in the moment. He'd smell things. He'd get to know other animals, other beings, other friends by their smell. And he would see things, and he would taste things when he was out and about. He'd taste the strawberries, and he'd lick different things. And he would, feel the ground under his feet, and the grass, and he'd roll in the grass. He was always had this zest for life, and it was as though he really appreciated it. Another thing that came to mind while this was going through my mind, while I was driving, was a book that I had read part of, at least the first part of it, several years ago. It was called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, you may be aware of this book. And the reason I didn't finish it, even though it is a fairly small book, is because it is very horrific. Like, some of the stories in it are very horrific, and that's just, as my daughter says, I feel psychologically damaged or emotionally damaged after reading stuff like that. But he talked about in there about how people who have a sense of meaning or a sense of purpose in their life had a greater chance of surviving the concentration camp that he was in. And I mean, I guess he had some sort of empirical evidence for this. I mean, the guy was a seasoned psychologist or some sort of a professional like that. Now, he talked very eloquently at certain points. I remember this one particular story where he talked about how they were digging this trench, and in bare feet and almost frozen feet, and sometimes with spoons or whatever they had. And after all their work, and they were basically starving. It was half a dozen. It was near the end of the war, and there were only a few survivors left, really. And he was saying there was something that was really interesting about the experience of that kind of deprivation. You know, in life, it's a funny thing. Everything seems to be relative, right? In other words, no matter how somebody's life is, how posh their life is, how, you know, outwardly comfortable it looks, there's always this quest for this next orgasmic experience of the senses, this experience of life, right? To appreciate. And therefore, we can imagine, or we can maybe imagine, maybe we can't imagine, but in a very depraved state, as these men must have been in, the smallest thing that we wouldn't notice as exquisite, was simply dazzling, simply incandescent to these men. I remember him telling this story about how they built this pile of dirt at the end of the trench or whatever that they would then later move out. And it was a cold winter morning, and there was some kind of a bird, like a blue jay or something, swept down and landed on the top of this pile. And they all stopped, and they looked at the bird. And there was almost like I don't know, as I can remember, I don't remember exactly the wording, but there was almost like this tingle inside them, this other world experience almost, just to see that bird, the beauty. It was an uplifting moment. Another experience, when he was talking about this, nature of the possibility to see these little gems, no matter what state we're in, you know. And possibly it's almost greater in degree in states like that. Because there's almost nothing that's pleasurable. Must be not, anyway. I remember also him talking about how there was a crack in the wall somewhere where they were staying in this frozen little hut, and how when the sun would come up or the sun would go down, there would be this little ray of light come through, and they would look at that in awe. It was like a real appreciation for something exquisite yet simple, but just there, you know. So I think, you know, in terms of quality of life, when we can learn to appreciate the little things. I mentioned before, my mom sent me a little card one time. I forget what it was, a birthday card, I think, and it was almost blank. The whole card was almost blank except for a little wee picture at the front and a little slogan underneath it. And it was something along the lines of those. I kept it, and I've got it somewhere. When I find it, I'll read it to you. I got it somewhere in one of my boxes. As you can imagine, I'm moving around. Almost everything is perpetually in boxes now. Just, you know, I don't know why I cart the boxes around. I only use one bag, and the rest is boxes that never get opened again. Anyway, little diversion there. Appreciation, though. Yeah, because they're things like what my mom gave me. I appreciate it. It was a little slogan that said something like, "Those who truly appreciate nature can truly live." And you know, it's those little things. I was just recently this evening watching a video by this man who's known as a very, very good communicator. And he talks about being genuine. And, you know, I have no reason to doubt that he's not genuine. He might be just a huckster, or I don't know. But no matter what, his point, I think, is well taken, or can be well taken. He talks about how in communication, if we really appreciate somebody who we're trying to put a message across to, we will give as much attention as possible to that individual, to the point in some cases of actually holding hands. You see that sometimes when people are in, when there's a great amount of empathy and trying to help somebody in some way. The more we can engage with like an appreciative contact, holding hands, one hand on top of the other hand, you see that sometimes, and sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction. Normally it's somebody that's close, relative, something like that. But it's that attention, and attention to me is important in the quality of life experience, because quality of life is an experience of life. And if we're not paying attention to, it's like if you're eating food and you're in a hurry and you guzzle it down and you swallow unchewed boluses. Afterwards it's like, upset stomach, maybe acid reflux, these sorts of things. But if we're relaxed and we're hungry and it's food that we enjoy and we feel good about it because it's healthy food, we eat it and we savor it. There's some of my food. And we have a second time. And we savor it. It's paying attention to it. We get to appreciate it more. And I experience that when I appreciate something, I can be more grateful for it. And there's like this welling up of contentment inside because of the appreciation. Hope this was helpful. Just sharing a few thoughts on appreciation. I think it's important. I experience it as important. And what do you think? Give me some thoughts at some point. Once again, this is Steve. It was great chatting. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.